Dear Jeanine Pirro, Americans and Fox News, all Americans and people at countries A through Z, every individual voice, including every leader, no matter how powerful they could get, or any grouping of countries, while they are entertaining voices for humanity, and through NAS systems abridged from its system with an individual species body, the different species body than the other species bodies, also made up of a whole bunch of individual different bodies, where and how more and more forever nature is being made. And English was revealed to be taught this way. As a science, as a method of it, appreciating how nature shows us it is functional, being hyper invisible but still discernible, distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible. Anthony Wallman, expert on the nature of English grammar and of communications. And I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police form. And I didn't try to because I would. So no, I didn't break the law. I recorded by accident, and they forced it while being and having been used remotely. Names on and off the Weathersfield corrections offices right at the Hartford, half Weathersfield, no too, because these are people with town lines. Demonstrably, in other states have manifest exceptions used too. Consciously by this breaching method has everything a breaching method had to do. It had to have it done through other people and things. So then in the future too, because nature keeps demonstrating to us a human fact should be nature breaching method was and is one of the things that witch trials. There's a witch trials place next to Webb House, now called the Webb Stevens Museum. Then and now they still have replaced what our founders communicated about it. People say, oh, we have difference about that. This is keeping differences, including of the parties' collusions. So I forgive me for the title. I'm not trying to knock you guys. You guys are trying your best, but you have unnatural / hyper unnatural imposition, so to speak. I'm not even a lawyer. It's recorded how lawyers, all sides of criminal and civil cases, their sources, their family members, different natures of conjunctions to them, and influence is known. They come also with what is hyper invisible but still discernible. Connecticut's WFSB has World Trade Center predicate acts with people from Washington, D.C., and interstates, Miami, people from Orlando, Florida, involved with also with the World Trade Center attack, with Connecticut courts, all sides of criminal and civil cases and crime scenes, including body dumping spots next to them. Same names rolls with that, and with U/S of it recorded, they have and have had collusion/S with multiple home break-ins in my areas, years apart, and could time the U/S of that collusion/S. Weathersfield police faked conversations with me being at the police station as a kid, and now as an adult too. And when I did get arrested there, they took my fingerprints. I remember it. It was conscious where I had not one word of conversation with them, and they even asked me one. And now some Mendez police, they attached me to fake conversations with one of the older one at the Weathersfield police station. I didn't have a word of conversation with one officer there. They forced my Saudi friend to collusions with them. It's increasingly with people named Scalora and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with also the other department, right through the first Trump administration and since before it. They're just showing fake transcripts and or the equivalent to presidents. There's an Officer Hunter too, not that Hunter Biden, but Officer Hunter is involved at Central Connecticut State University with multiple intelligence agencies and courts, families, and intimate ties, foreign and domestic military, involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forest, and the roles of all kinds of organized crimes, acts, and methods next to each age and nature of campus that are connected. And relativity to where in the house, before there are killers that are young kids, they came through sick campuses. That's one thing. Because not honest science, the breaching method knew that everyone would pretend they would value their job and title. Through an as systems tactical terror from natures, and as collusion / us replacing what James Madison had communicated for us. So I'm not, it's not, I wrote the title because everyone was child abused. And it's effective where you guys are not responding online. You have they have criminally influenced, tactically delusions, self-valued roles with readings of statutes and precedents regarding what people say online. The same names, collusions with you / us of that, our names at next to the campuses I went. I don't know if they're next to Middlesex Community College. That's the only one. Next to each of the other ones, there are ties between the families next to them with relative identity theft, fraud, slanders, and planting evidences with whiting forensics people, state police, families, interstates, the same ones involved with foreign and domestic medical offenders, sexual offenders of kids, ones with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. Don't let them pretend they're legitimately on marked police forms too. They have those acts I'm speaking about. They have a principal upskirt nature. I caught them involved with worse with the kids then and now. Then they put, after that was proven anyway, they put upskirt pictures on Twitter. And then they hid that also with X. And then they blocked my account. Multiple Facebook pages they took from me. And they made ones pretending to be me. And they've been planting evidences with the Facebook page of the British Superior Court involved with rape threats, involved with falsified police reports. A whole bunch of people tied to and as former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with mayors from Connecticut too, and Senator Lieberman and people that from Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed his wife. And people associated with Lieberman is involved as one of the people with foreign and domestic intelligence at Town Lines, and something to do with that, with them with the corner of Town Line Drive and South Steed Highway, with people named Kerr, DeMauro, Cololo, Caron, Perron, involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, all more sexual and medical offenders of kids. Anthony Yagman, they said, has something to do with. I never saw him there. He's one of the ones involved also with sexual syntax about my neighbor, that algebra class teacher I had collusions with, and Anthony Yagman, and Senator Congressman Larson's reported relative. Just repeating fake things of others, in other words, and with the teacher in that class, and a Mike Domain, and I was the only ones in the class. Increasing that class, I roles with the people, with the investigators and the police forms at the campuses that have and have had collusions with predicate acts methods, fake transcripts in the databases, then acting tied to it, with as names collusions with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones. They're not legitimately with acting professors involved too. Central Connecticut State University has acting professors involved with them training state police and other intelligence, foreign and domestic military. They're involved with all kinds of organized crimes. And you guys have delusions that we have to address. Actual finite ones, grouped ones, and simultaneous ones. And the uses of delusions as a word by the people in the news, I'm not even a doctor to it, and distinctly from the people and the doctors, that difference was just being used too. Because in other words, it's relative to how we have our people's rights of eye. And what nature communicates with that, and what our founders communicated with that, about how the breaching method reassigned what nature communicates, when nature is not only itself as criminal insidiousness nature, with black people's rights of eyes, which also shows us nature teaching us about the law. Natural law is real too. By the way, please, Jeanine Pirro, if you ever speak to Judge Napolitano, please tell him natural law is real, and I can show him this because they also have his Facebook page and social media involved with whiting forensics and people and intelligence next to Fox Connecticut News, Channel 61, is increasingly involved with multiple courts, family members, their kids involved with predicate acts with drugs and medicines, crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles with other countries, and then pretending fake passions and emotions. See them with their roles with the Koreans, with the Violet family, and the intelligence associated with them at UConn, people involved with the name Zano too, and their roles with public television and other networks and conjunctions to them and to that. and which is also the state judicial branch offices, increasingly involved with organized crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, predicate acts of Wethersfield Pizza with the judicial branch and the Wethersfield Police at the same time, with people involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, involved with all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders. This Stephen Stocko, I never had a word of conversation with him. I have one sentence to him. I'm like, hello, is Maria there? That was the only sentence I ever had to him in my life. They put him in a class with me. They hid what was recorded before that. His roles with my neighbor and this Paul Zane was also interstate. Their roles with the Johnson and Wales, with intelligence, also with other campuses, people involved with the name Luigi Guerrero, involved with intelligence families that have been lying since they were kids as families, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people involved with predicate acts, with facts, with databases. Between people, may try to make it look. I never had a conversation with him. I sat in this boring car ride. They're trying, in other words, they're trying to probably fish for some truths to use for lies. They spy with other countries. People named Zeno and Kalol involved with the FBI and other agencies and foreign and domestic military. People involved in inter-services, jobs, titles, involved collusions with them with the news too, and the names next to them through time. Increasingly, their recorded confessed, demonstrate, confirmed that Elm Street corners and Rocky Hill and Wethersfield with retired police chiefs from Wethersfield. With the one in Rocky Hill, the Elm Street in Rocky Hill, since years before the modern Mazzucato Bakery was there. And I don't know them. And they tried to make, they were recorded influence to make it look like other I was just playing with them. With a real exception. I don't know where they pretended other. But years before that bakery was there at that corner, a bunch of people from Wethersfield had roles acting as collusion/S with people putting predicate acts with facts in databases at the campuses I went. Anthony Agman also has on Facebook collusions with the intelligence community with Joshua Julian and other sexual and medical offenders of kids involved with people from other areas. Also on Facebook page of Principal Obscure Nature, they were involved with other natures of organized crimes. And some black KKK themed, Confederate flag theme, collusions against the North and South. They're the North and South voices. They still have other communicated for our founders about what caused the Civil War. James Madison's plan caused the Declaration of Independence, the Constitutional Convention, and the Civil War. It was a plan to counter-extort people to an extent. They had to leave slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies. This is not supposed to be debatable. That's what people are calling racism. Everyone's demonstrably, there's a fake America. If we want to make America great again, we have to make it further from reach through all the convictions that are in place of what James Madison left declassified for us to understand, and what nature itself does. Like just for example, about the black pupils' rights of eyes. Even if it wasn't, it's more about this anyway. Nature itself shows us whatever Colonel said, don't shoot until you see the whites of eyes. We're supposed to understand clearer than day with any nature of debate regarding anything like that in history. Who knows what or not. Supposed to know first, everyone had to be counter-extorted. And everyone was checked. The breaching method had internationally monitored conversations and questions for everyone to measure and maintain they were an extent of collusion/S against themselves and against everyone else. So not one nature of independence, not one nature of unity could defend itself and overcome the impositions that nature is demonstrating in the breaching method. But the breaching method also assigned all the identities of jobs and titles, reliant upon those demonstrations to be and have been blamed on other things, others ourselves. That's only remembered. We are in the same ancient trap that has our founders in our face. And our founders, plural. There's discernibly. James Madison wasn't alone. And it wasn't people, okay, we all going to agree, we're going to be a country. That's why they had to leave slavery entrenched, because they were still being measured and maintained. Who was behind it? James Madison didn't even have free speech once he was a president/chief. And the breaching method forced, and it is recorded, still forcing people to pretend they have free speech while they don't. That's why there are proofs that that's one of the reasons, plausibly, that why President/Chief Trump keeps saying fake news, and they keep making convictions about it. It's supposed to, why do we know? But in other words, we could use what we know is true always. Like, new fake news is real. Fake WFSB faked conversation with me about the World Trade Center attack. They're extorting me. They attached me and other kids. They attached kids, fake ties to doctors when I was a kid, and now as an adult, the same families involved. A whole bunch of ones tied to them and their kids have roles with predicate acts in my streets from other areas. I never even saw them on my area. They had people tied to them, planting evidences, and confessions to make it look like we were tied as a group. As ones involved with acting tied to the predicate acts with facts as recorded into the databases. These are increasingly people with the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices, increasingly collusions with tied home break-ins, untimely deaths, murders, people dragged to their death. The World Trade Center attack. These are names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the court itself forced the collusion/S in the news at the same time. Otherwise, that body is sentenced, like me. And they're preventing individuals from speaking by forcing people to speak as groups when other people aren't even involved with the conversations. But they already covered it up by trying to put people, fake the conversations with everyone around them and changed ones. These are people doing this inter-cities and intra-cities where they refuse to have a response to cover up the interbranch already forged names, switched names, sequences, as time collusions with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the news at the same time, names next to the body drivers for worse, and their campuses next to it. The FBI has rules with WTNH with people with like named O'Neill and their kids with fake ties to me next to the campus planting evidences, and with people involved further with the corrections offices, with the confessions of one of the teachers when she was a kid about Lance Cuddy, who's also involved with WTNH and the FBI and the courts with sexual and medical offenders of kids, also with ones named Leahy with Hartford Hospital and Lombardo, and their roles with the same house/S involved with predicate acts with them, falsified police reports, identity theft, fraud, slanders. Get these Mendez police on paper, please, Judge Jeanine Pirro, and to one name in sequence. Brian Silver and other prosecutors and their kids and other people tied to them different ways with our intelligence families next to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. They're increasingly involved with child abusers intercities on and off the campuses. This is an outcome/S that is a maintained outcome/S by a hyper-foreign. And it keeps things like foreign being blamed, criminal foreign influences being blamed, even when wrongly. Even when correctly, exactly the way it wanted and needs to leave its collusion/S, and with use of that. To leave its collusion. They all have collusions with plural. It made all of the names of the people of the sciences collusions plural, with its hyper collusion that no one wanted collusions with, but everyone knew and knows. Okay, like just like with black people's whites of eyes, everyone has collusions forcing, changing, and faking what people say. They try to use this as evidences because it doesn't correlate with the way people treated evidences. Because if we pay attention, they have been collusion/S. Sandy Hook Prison, the prisons of Connecticut, and the state judicial branch office, the difference of guilt of the intelligence there are next to them. The same ones are collusions with the difference of guilt of the intelligence at the networks are next to them. They have wire crime acts and methods that involved also with the lawyers too, pretending people make conspiracy theories, change real short conversations and totally fake ones. Pretend people just rather than keep it on the sentence. A Trantolo and Trantolo has roles with interbranch with all kinds of evidences, crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and organized crimes, refusing to identify themselves interbranch, and with WFSB faked conversations with me, and faked me being tied to doctors as a kid and as an adult that weren't at all. And these are doctors that pretended conversations with me at Hartford Hospital one time. When I forced people to call the police without telling them why, I told them I was going to be violent until they did it. And then finally, had to get someone else to get it through the mail for me, a response from them. No, I didn't even communicate with them. I just saw them with my eyes. One's named Leahy. One's further with the Parks and Recreation through time. In Wethersfield, they have roles at Hartford Hospital, the House of Business next to it, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. These are ones that are running in with the family members of fire departments, people tied to databases, conjunction, criminals, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, even running into high life progressions at the same time with the interbranch at spots filmed 24/7 where they're just faking and changing what's there, but and putting fake transcripts. Or Rick Cianfaglione sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. A Leahy family and a Brian Silver has roles with them playing with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and putting fake ties and fake natures of ties to me with people at my grammar school I never even saw around my grammar school. And they tried to make fake exceptions and fake motivations for it. They put sequence shifts, which are relative because they have roles with the World Trade Center attack and the court next to it with sequence shifts. It was proven after the attack, right before the World Trade Center attack. The panel of judges had been presented. They had names on both sides of the case, their sources, and from inside the court. Someone had post-dated to make it look as if the legal papers had been handed in late to the panel of judges. And then the World Trade Center happened right after that. And we came home, and I found out about it when I came home. And the Central Connecticut State University in Connecticut had and has collusion /S also with the intelligence families intercities and people tied to them. Gail King too, with a Gary Sasso and people with wedding forensics and that work for the Hartford government and people next to Fox Connecticut News and at Fox Connecticut News. But I mean, I'm trying to make them not get in trouble. They still want to get in worse because they won't respond. You guys won't respond to mandated law. I want a response for the principal child abuser's confessions. And when I brought it up, they have rules with untimely deaths, even if they made that up too. As one's planting evidences with digital faking and changing and hiding what's digitally recorded at Trinity College, and with a fake letter. And and with people with untimely deaths and rolls with names on my street in Connecticut and Wethersfield, with those names in Hartford and intercities. And the same ones are the intelligence families next to Central Connecticut State University in Newbury, Connecticut. They're connected to the people next to Trinity College and the ones involved with their extended family members, involved with the Scalora, for example, a Scalora, and people with the court and the spots next to it and names at the World Trade Center, and people tied to them, increasingly collusions with natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. And their collusions with people that went out of their way to pretend behind my back they knew me that I don't know. And they increasingly have collusion with the same house /S with retired police chiefs and a bunch of probate court judges and their extended family members, with people that have been putting fake ties, fake natures of ties to me on my street since I was a kid to make it look like I know them. No, but I still have people with a pond and there's a field there. In other words, they do that. Is a mass identity theft, fraud, slander, collusions, just with the black people's rights of eyes. And this preaching method shows everyone they need to hide those collusions and then speak about things like crimes anyway. See, forgiveness is so we don't leave out the breaching method and the actual condition of things. And the breaching method's roles with the economies and the opinions, the quote opinions on it. The nature of debate contains quality aspects in nature itself as criminal insidious nature that the breaching method uses, all using it self-value, right? Where no one does too. And then their narratives about motives and things like that. Styles of logic, nature of logic are manifest. They can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper regarding James Madison's declassified communications for us and regarding nature's too. So we have to understand how this breaching method had been sustained upon that which came before modern countries as countries as their equivalent then. And then through our founding, in other words, there was a breaching method entrenched with slavery, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies. And it wasn't just against England. That truth has been used for a lie. The experts had obligations to stop that, even because it's recorded. So we fought against England, the American Revolution, that's what it was about. There were more than England involved, and they didn't and still don't have possession of their name, just like America doesn't. Right through the Gulf War, after the World Trade Center attack and years before it, leading up to it, the names involved with the World Trade Center attack and since with WFSB, same ones, involved interstates and internationally. They had collusions with differences, with uses of their own differences and other people's differences. And like the value of their sense and sensibilities with religions, with fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature. On a mass scale, demonstrably, there are people involved with medical corruption, with all natures of courts. And they use crime methods where they pretend people had conversations about religion and have, thoughts on religion that are not natural or that are not sane. They fake the conversation to do that. They're criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. The beginning of the Old Testament says only defend right here, where the names of the people, the sciences will come together, and the part that comes before it. And that's before the part with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's what science is about. I never talked with them about that. This Leahy family has many people involved from other areas, like a Rick Sanfaglione, involved with New Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, and the Connecticut District Court, with the FBI, collusions with them at West Hartford locations, and with the state judicial branch office and corrections offices. People involved with the Clinton Correctional Facility and with Facebook. Tried to make it look like I know the people. Well, right while they were on the run, the people reportedly having escaped from the Clinton Correctional Facility. And the people that run the prisons and the campuses that train them and their family members. Recorded capacity demonstrated confirmed influence to collusions with people associated with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their family members, all sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions before the World Trade Center attack, and with the spots like of a serial killer, a reported serial killer, and that serial killer himself, and names that the businesses next to it involved with the people. That's in the Britain and West Hartford. Those same names, increasingly collusions with the same houses from Wethersfield, tied to child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first floors, and their families' roles with that. With overt criminal enterprises, private ones, even when they're not in the cases, involved with the names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the interbranch and the intelligence tied to them. Self-value in the same sequence shifts at the same exact time. Fake motivations planting and screening, because a breaching method is increasingly involved with everyone's motivations. So it's relative to how and why. People have roles. Preventing Black people's rights of eyes. Evidences. Quinnipiac University has a bunch of people involved with organized crimes, and that affects their roles with polling locations, election locations, The parties are a little shell game, and the exceptions are too. As if we look at what's actually recorded. So please, there's a police chief Cintron, and he reportedly has a daughter, Jessica Cintron. I never met her, and she's involved with people with and like named Reno Mazzucato and others tied to him. I don't know the names of. I never saw him on a campus I went to in my life. I saw him one time on a campus. They tried to make a fake exception with one of the. There's a Coach Hagen bar is involved with people all along Route 175 and people with whiting forensics, with some sexual medical offenders of kids years apart, and people forced conversation behind people's backs. And these are per others. I never even had a conversation with him, like hardly any short words with him. In other words, I just wanted to, I want to teach about American history properly. Don't leave out the breaching method against Native Americans sustained. People can't help but do that because they had other things, others ourselves blamed for the breaching method that was the same one against our founders, and they are our founders. We have not been paying attention, regardless of what they say. Caused chief to be part with president. It took more than George Washington and some retired soldiers to go against internationally monitored conversations and the method that had everyone measured and maintained. Collusion / S to an extent against themselves and everyone else. Otherwise, that body was sensed, including if that body was a majority of people, including if it was everyone. Any voicing of humanity proper would be sensed and adapted to. Any grouping of countries while we are locations, areas, and states as is A through Z, it adapts to that too. The suburbs were designed for a torture, extortion, slavery method, and then America's founders were born. There are homes that are still standing, for example. Oh, but it's a different, the same scale. The whole ocean, even the ocean's got mercury all over it. What do? Make all the fresh water go away. Have PFAS in there. There's forever chemicals in all the fresh water. Fresh water, we have the suburbs, well, they had wagons. They didn't have wagons. They could build houses better than they build now with cranes and trucks. And they want to have nature debate. Oh, but you wouldn't know how to pour the... Get down. YouTubers would help. No way. But where we had it for? No way. And we're supposed to keep the fresh water clean. It keeps going to this ocean. We could lift it up above the pollution. We could do things like that together. But see, all natures of unity, all natures of independence. You guys are still shock and awe. Victims / hyper victims needed to react, not knowing how to do it properly, to the breaching methods used through everyone else. Everyone's uses of their own differences or other people's differences. Otherwise, they are sensed. Because the breaching method measures and maintains the names of the people, the sciences, using differences, tactical ulterior from how the identity generating totally different species bodies. Uses its difference, has its difference manifest, demonstrated to us, generated demonstration to us. In other words. So WFSB has roles distinctly from WTNH, but also non-distinctly, and their sources, and from Fox Connecticut News, distinctly, but also non-distinctly with crime scenes, and with predicate acts, with facts methods, wire crime acts and methods, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and fake motivation screening, with the interbranch at the same time. And they forge names, switch names, put fake data in databases tied to other people, all natures of investigators, offensively putting things that they know they can't go back. Influence to do it. Sometimes it's them, and sometimes it's the people influencing to say, oh, wait, time when they're going to be there and say this, or demonstrate this. and make confessions about their roles with the corner, and they make it look like I had a conversation with them there. They just made confessions regarding the corner on Highcrest Street with involved with more child abusers leaders of kids then and now too, years apart once. Further, with the courts, prosecutors, and judges, and police chiefs retired, and foreign and domestic medical, a bunch of people with instituted living have roles with names next to campuses with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and collusions with names with the World Trade Center attack. Wethersfield police also forced Saudis to collusions with them with the Mendez police, involved with New Britain Superior Court, Wethersfield Police Department, and next to Fox Connecticut News with predicate acts with other sexual medical offenders of kids, of work criminal enterprise, private ones, involved with them with identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake police reports, fake conversation me with the older one. These are ones also with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and Thaddeus Grabowski, and his roles with a bunch of people from Wethersfield and intercities with the campuses, like a John LeConte and Dominic Laparata, also with a whole bunch of different countries with identity theft, fraud, slanders, putting fake things in database exclusions as some of the men and women from off the campuses, and then putting fake ties to me, fake exceptions too. They can't be honest about because those exceptions were recorded collusions with other predicate acts and federal evidences, crimes and organized crimes on a mass scale. They're pretending it's just their legitimate role standing as fakes. That's why only fakes speak for black people's rights of eyes. That's what our founders communicated. Please be strong. Miss Pirro, since you guys were little girls, the little girls are sickly distinctly to keep out sickly non-distinctly, hurt from the boys, because they're going to hear things through others. And then they're going to try to verify them. And while they're trying to verify them, it's going to be like timed, right? When someone's walking there and the person knows they're not going to see them, then they're just doing that because they're just trying to verify fake things. As roles with delusions associated with the predicate acts with facts and the methods of them that are used to keep collusions, where they keep it's recorded how they are motivated, even when they're not involved with the instances with other people. They have to hide life progressions per their roles with uses of like Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of organized crime acts and methods recorded and names involved with various courts personally and professionally involved with them faking transcripts, drugs and medicines crimes, and tactically delusions raw. I'm going to teach America about delusions. I'm not even a doctor. I'll delineate the delusions from their criminal foreign influences, and we can't leave them out because they're a part of that's part of the answer. Part of it is their delusions raw. The experts on the people on reason, the experts on reason, on psychiatry. There are all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts, and delusions. Fake transcripts, collusion /S2 with all kinds of natures and methods of organized crimes, which are the motivations for the roles with other natures of crime scenes. Every instance, thing they hear about, name they hear about, timing of it. This is a certain type of victim /hyper victim. The breaching method maintains for a method involved with all natures of crime scenes originally and still. When did it stop using what it only allowed to be? Unfathomable in all roles. Souls. In other words, so everyone should be met. You guys have obligations to admit that I caught you guys replacing what was actually declassified in self-value roles as victims /hyper victims, child abuse since you were kids. Because I recorded much worse, and you guys are going to be able to observe this, what they were doing and are doing with the names out and next to the corrections offices of Connecticut and the prisons. They recorded and writing forensics increasingly with crime scenes, including body dumping spots and murders and a girl dragged to her death and people involved with this. Also with the houses and businesses next to Hartford Hospital as families connected to the same house /S with wire crimes and falsified police reports, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and planting evidences on my street from other areas with them and with the other campuses, whether they went to them or not. They have collusions there. That's all recorded. Things were verified on Facebook, confirmed on Facebook. That's why they really took my Facebook page, made fake Facebook pages pretending to be me. Facebook has collusions of people since before they were Facebook with this. All sides of criminal and civil cases and grouped countries internationally too with Facebook cases. They have collusion slash yes, all kinds of delusions too relative with their roles with all kinds of organized crimes with the private criminal enterprises and other at the same time right through world wars like with psychiatry. We're going to have to address this. They're incapable of having mandated law followed properly. A bunch of people were court confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Ones with the name Demoro and I mean Delaferro have rules with people I never saw in my area in my life, and a bunch of brothers I don't even know their names. And two of them I don't know the names of, and they have rules with intelligence families, and they have a probate court judge, and as their extended family member, and for one of the guys I caught involved with sending kids to plant evidences and fake ties to me on my street years later, confessed to his roles with a judge with that. They have roles with all kinds of investigators of kids that are collusion slash S with the crime scenes and with foreign countries and per way worse. These are people that are like, in other words, the Violet family has a bunch of people involved with them on my street with some KKK Confederate flag theme they confirmed roles with adjusted Kalvinskis and people at Central Connecticut State University in Yukon. Also with a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield involved in intercities with the intelligence out next to Harvard Hospital, who are also collusions with the police chiefs from Wethersfield, with Elm Streets in Wethersfield and Rocky Hill through time, and conjunctions to it and to that, like the state judicial branch offices, and the names involved with them with the state corrections offices, and the crime scenes where the prisons have names and families have and have had collusions with the crime scenes with the criminals to force them, also force, these are people new. Sandy Hook Prison has rules with child abusers, leaders of kids, families that first forced it rules, and with the Sandy Hook names, and lying about their motivations for roles with it. Increasingly, there are people with the name Cintron in Puerto Rico tied to a Pito Cardona and to a police chief Cintron, also involved here as the ones with the Elm Streets, involved with a whole bunch of people that put predicate acts with facts in my databases at the campuses I went in Wethersfield. That intercities have been planted, acting tied to it too. The news, at the same time, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake conversations with me. These are also people a number of ways with Washington, D.C., involved with two speech class teachers I had in high school, involved with Washington, D.C., and medical offenders of kids, and people with the corrections office and judicial branch offices with organized crimes and with, medicines crimes, drugs crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake motivations, planting, cover-ups. They had a lot of things that from off the campuses, my campuses leaders and their kids and other kids were court confessed, demonstrate, confirmed they were influenced to say fake things and then to hide that they said that and pretend and just repeat that incidents happened, and now other people just fake it and make it look like we communicated. They'll tell you this, but you have to ask them correctly. A Rick Sanfaglione has roles with people, a girlfriend, a boyfriend of a daughter of a principal at a campus I went to. I'm not saying he was a child abuser. There were child abusers who were involved with conversations with him. I never had any bad conversation with him. Anything that pretends other that is also recorded involved with people involved with WTNH and the FBI, and the differences of guilt with the intelligence out the networks are next to them. This breaching method has everyone collusions with itself. The breaching method with uses of differences, tactical terror from what could defend that and afford to have discerned, for it to be, let alone to protract. Short words with differences properly, the way nature communicates with differences. We have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. and there are exceptions. And it is exception nature, taught to us by nature itself. We have difference taught to us by nature itself. We have nature's own communications replaced. Nature itself shows us the brain, the breaching method. That is one of the things all those crazy laws were against, that were all equally valued as. A human factor nature breaching method is one of the things that caused them, what they were valued as. And our founders communicated about it and about why, how they had to declassify it. There was a breaching method entrenched. Sickly distinctly, again, it had everyone measure and maintain, it had a method, it was a method. And see, everyone else was methods, because they were only allowed to be methods, collusion / only allowed. But as methods, that incapable of defending that, the styles of it, nature of it, uses, used by the breaching method. Forgiveness is to not leave out the breaching method or to get it wrong. Nature shows us this. Even if that's not what was meant by things, like I didn't read about in the religion, but I learned through the nature of the religion they teach that forgiveness is important. I only know in the beginning of the Old Testament it says, only defend right here, where the names of the people of sciences will come together in the part that comes before it, which is about science. But no one even knows about that part. And it says only defend that part. So everyone wants to have nature debate. And then they want to defend that. While they're doing that, everyone's missing what's actually recorded there: criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature. Not just present premises, treatment, sequence shifts self-value. And the self-value part is relative to the breaching methods used / S of it, right where it's not self-valued simultaneously. No one wants to self-value, replacing what nature communicates with Black people's rights of life, or to blame others, other things, others, ourselves incorrectly for that. Even in other words, our founders are framed right through our schools and the people attacking them from other countries, their collusions, and there are use / S of their families' roles with those other countries. They do things to try to make other people say things about, to hold themselves fake together, because they're only capable of it. But everyone will be healed once you got to follow mandated law. One person. Please judge Jeanine Pirro. It's Washington, D.C. corruption too, increasingly with the people that were involved with the predicate acts methods between the campuses I went. It's not just for me, it's for America. Please do get them on paper, one name and sequence. They recorded, they enabled this to be recorded and demonstrated. In other words, they can't help but make confessions to the breaching method that countries A3Z too. Since before religions used, before the church used confessions, a breaching method, even though they use it still the same way the breaching method does, a breaching method used it first. And we're supposed to discern this because no one had free speech, even religious messengers. We know this. People want to debate that, again, with the nature of debate. We have to show, I'm not even a doctor. I can show people how they can discern delusions and the delusions of doctors that we have to address right now regarding American history and their rules replacing with James Madison what nature communicates and did, and pretending they could speak for integrity anyway. And their rules with the identities of the law and the prisons know all kinds of organized crimes. They have to hide that. They have to pretend they could speak for crime. Get it down. I'll gather around.